What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I'm here to talk about a blind superhero. That's Daredevil, and he's born again. So, I've watched the first two episodes of the Disney Plus series. We're going to talk about it, but first, please click like and subscribe because while Disney Plus is making a series about a blind superhero, it's getting a lot harder to navigate through programs as DEI initiatives are being reversed and recalled. And generally, those are the programs that care about accessibility for people like me. So I started this channel to talk about audio description, which is an accessibility feature that blind people need, which this show has. And I'm sort of worried about the future of it with companies sort of running from DEI and being sued for having programs and I would just love as many people. Now I have to become like an influencer or something. So it's this or I don't know what's the TikTok challenge right now. Am I supposed to be snorting nutmeg or something? I have no idea, but um, I'm gonna have to start doing whatever that is. And be like, whoa, as I snort the nutmeg. Daredevil, born again. We're back, sort of. um, Yeah, so obviously the Netflix shows were popular, and Disney at first didn't want anything to do with them. And like that's why the characters haven't crossed over to film, is because they really just don't know what to do with them. But the fans of the Netflix Marvel shows really love the Netflix Marvel shows for the most part. There's some people who look at Iron Fist and go, I don't know about that. But for the most part, that's true. That's a true statement. Certainly, Charlie Cox as Daredevil was an excellent jump into the foray of making a darker Marvel show. And honestly, the kind of Marvel show that they need right now. like, so and now they're bringing it back, but it looks different. It feels different. It's not quite the same. It feels like they're pulling their punches. It feels like they're trying to kind of morph him a little bit more into the new MCU, especially the new MCU shows, while also recognizing that this show was already a little bit more violent. So they can't fully pull it back. It can't fully become, but it kind of feels like it's being pulled a little bit more PG-13 than it was before, which makes me sort of intrigued for where they would go with a show like The Punisher, you know, or Jessica Jones. Should they revive those at some point? Should Daredevil Born Again be so big that they're like, oh my God, we have to? Because let's face it, they may say no, but at the end of the day, they're horrors. So Disney's going to do it whether or not it has nothing to if they think it's going to make them money, it's going to make them money. So of course Frank Castle's in Daredevil this year, John Bernthal. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, man, returning cast from the original series is bleak from what I can tell. It's not a lot of people returning, which is interesting because that's kind of what made me excited. I remember when they first announced the show and they hadn't announced that Karen and Foggy would return. And then they did. And then I saw the pilot. And by the way, there are spoilers ahead because I literally can't talk about two episodes without talking about the first one. So since I thought two episodes, I have to talk about it. So there'd be spoilers ahead and there'd be big spoilers because the first episode hits you hard and hits you fast and then runs away. It sucker punches you and then runs away. Um, so the show opens up with a conversation. I felt very sort of uncomfortable at the beginning of the show, which was just like some people, like it was kind of the gang, like Matt was there, Karen was there, Foggy was there, but there were some like new characters who they were trying to like gaslight us into believing had been there the whole time. And I looked them up and I was like, they haven't been there. They were not in Daredevil. They were not in one of the other Marvel shows, but whatever. Um, and they they're all at the bar and they're just having this conversation and talking and having fun. And Foggy has a client that he's trying to hide, and help out or whatever. And it leads to that client ends up telling Foggy telling somebody where he is, and lo and behold, Bullseye shows up, and a bullet just like rips right through Foggy's chest, and Foggy slowly dies. More bullets fly, missing Karen, who runs to help Foggy, but just shooting at other patrons. Basically, we open with mass shooting from Bullseye, who apparently is not very good at aiming after the Foggy shot. He's just kind of trying to aim, but not. Anyway, so then Bullseye comes in and has, one-on-one combat with Daredevil, which is an excellent and very well described sequence. Basically, Bullseye's entire sequence is phenomenal. The description, there's a time when the lights go out, and it describes the fact that we can barely see them in low light and they're still fighting. Bullseye is constantly trying to get Matt off his back by grabbing like a knife and then throwing it at like a patron who's trying to flee, so that Matt has to go help the patron, and it gives him a chance to run away. He's just trying to murder random bar patrons. So he ends up getting Matt twice, and but Matt is so upset about the Foggy thing that eventually, when he does beat Bullseye at the end, when we see it and he's triumphed over Bullseye, he's got Bullseye over the edge of a building, and he's like, "Why?" And Bullseye was just laughing, won't tell him why. Why Foggy? Won't tell him anything. So Daredevil throws him off a fucking building, which he survives. That was one of the things where I was like, I would love to know how tall that building was, because it was at least 2 stories. He survived at least a 2-story, because there's talk about how he has to climb at least 1 floor to get to the roof. So, yeah, I don't know how far he fell, but good God, man. So I guess I don't know if we'll see him in the future in the season. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, maybe he'll get broken out. I have no idea. But so that's Bullseye. So Bullseye attacked and killed Foggy. So Foggy's dead, and that's the thing that looms over the whole series. And Matt gives up being Daredevil, and he's like, never again. But he gets to demand that Bullseye be given a guilty plea or whatever, which he's given 14, who's guilty of 14 counts of murder or something like that. And outside, he and Karen reunite for the first time in however a long time. And he's we get the idea that Karen's been ghosting him, but actually he was ghosting her first, is basically what she says. She's like, I tried reaching out to you and you didn't want to be reached out to. So she said, she hands him the little devil horn, which broke off of his mask during the fight with Bullseye, and then leaves. And then we don't see Karen again during the first 2 episodes. That's the last Karen, and I hope not, because again, I love this character, and anyway, so we go over to the new law offices where Matt has a new partner, McDuffie, who was essentially the girl that Foggy was flirting with, who is played by Nikki M. James, who is well known in the Broadway community, very well known for people who like Broadway. She's done a bajillion shows. She's probably most well known for originating in Book of Mormon, but I mean, she's also been in a bunch of other things. And this other guy, Cherry, I don't know. who again acts like he has a moment where he sees Matt as Daredevil and knows it's Matt. And he acts like he knows, like he's known it all the time. So I looked him up. I was like, do I just not remember this guy? I know it's been a few years. He doesn't have on his IMDb, he has none of the Netflix Marvel shows are on his resume. He doesn't have Daredevil. He doesn't have Punisher. He doesn't have Defenders. He doesn't have any of those shows. I'm like, where did you come from? And why are we just comfortable with introducing people like, oh yeah, yeah, it's part of the gang. From where? So of course we have to introduce he's like the private investigator that Matt uses now. I don't know. Anyway, um some of the introductions, how we were just like, it felt like we left and then we came back into somebody's life. It's like moving away for like 10 years and then moving back, and then like some of the gang and then you're trying to meet their friends. Like your old friends are there, but then they've got like new friends and they all know things about you, about your friends, but you don't know them. That's what this feels like. So the big twist of the story is Wilson Fisk, who aka Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio, who we saw in Echo, is back, and he has survived. In case you didn't see Echo, which is also, I guess, a spoiler for Echo, survives, and he's a changed man. Not really, but wants to say he is. And he walks into a room. His wife has been running the criminal enterprise without him, and basically running the show, and seems to still be running the show. Honestly, it seems like the mood that I get from Kingpin is every time he sees his wife, he seems more afraid of her than he is ready to control her. Like he's very much like, even though she points out that she was having a meeting, and then he walked in the room, and then like everybody scattered, like his presence is what people fear, but he has such this unease about him every time Vanessa's around. So he wants to run for mayor, and this becomes an interesting parallel between our real lives, where we have somebody running for political office that probably shouldn't be running for political office, and then getting elected to a political office who probably shouldn't be elected to political office, who's actually a corrupt asshole. So that is actually what this show is about, is Kingpin becoming the mayor of New York. And trying to tell people that he's turned over a new leaf, but he hasn't really. And then you see that definitely more in the second episode than in the first. Especially because in the first episode he has to run for it, so he's still trying to placate people. We have a nice young upstart who's really excited about him, who ends up getting close to Kingpin, played by Michael Gandolfini. And I don't know what his role is going to become of, but I did name check him, so I was like, well, he's done enough stuff for me to believe that he's too big of an actor to be in a role that is forgettable. So I mean, something's going to happen with that role. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but something. In the second episode, we're shown Kingpin is very anti-vigilante, but that's okay because Matt isn't doing that anymore. Matt does have a meeting with Kingpin. They do know who they are, and Matt's basically like, listen, if you say you're gonna do it, I'm fine, great, then do that. But I'm still watching, And second episode features a vigilante, a non-masked, just a guy who's like helping. There are some cops that are, well, we don't know they're cops at first. There are two guys that are beating up another guy, and he steps in and fights the other guys, and he's doing a pretty good job of fighting. And this actor, by the way, the second episode opens with a sort of like in memory of the actor playing Hector, is the in memory of, that's the actor who passed, which his reveal and everything of who he is interesting, because I don't know how many more episodes he shot, but he ends up pushing in the fight. One of the two guys ends up falling on the subway track and dying, and then the other one finally reveals himself to be a police officer, which is like, whoops, what does he do now? So he's So he's arrested for killing a police officer, but you like we see it from his perspective, which is two guys who never identified themselves were beating up a random stranger, and he saw it and just stepped in. It's not even a kind of vigilante thing. It's just a kind of like nice guy thing, like stepping in and if you see something, say something. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, he ends up being White Tiger, which is a hero that's referenced in the first episode as being like one of the heroes, which I didn't remember either. I was like, was there a White Tiger? So I didn't rewatch the Marvel shows before. Like I watched them when they were on Netflix, but I was just kind of hoping my memory would hold. Um, and I looked him up, and he doesn't have any credits either. He's one of these things where they're trying to like gaslight us into believing that they were there all along. He doesn't have any Marvel credits as an actor. So, um, but they end up finding out that he was White Tiger, and Matt steps in to uh, be his defense. Meanwhile, the cops hate him because they think he's a cop killer. I mean, technically, but like not in the way that you're thinking. Um, so that becomes Matt's big case. But at the same time, Wilson is doing some shady stuff as mayor, threatening the police commissioner, using a sandwich, uh, and openly getting stuff done so the people of New York see him. There's a BB Urich, who is Ben Urich's daughter. That's an interesting cast addition. So it's sort of like, well, you're related to somebody. Um, and she comes in as a journalist, and Wilson gives her 5 minutes basically. So I think she'll play an interesting part moving forward. Wilson has a couple like political operatives that work for him. We'll see how far they go. So that's kind of like the main cast. That's the show is basically going to be this power play from Kingpin to run New York, and I guess to get all the vigilantes out, while Matt is struggling with not wanting to become one. He ends up in the final episode. There's some cops that show up and are clearly, we have a bunch of corrupt cops. Like, it's funny that these cops are resistant to Kingpin being the mayor of New York. Like they're, like standing for all that is good. But we just keep seeing corrupt cops. Like there isn't like a hero cop here. Like every cop that is featured for any length of time ends up being an asshole. So Matt even identifies himself as blind, and he allows himself to get beaten by these cops for a little while before he just has enough. And he's like, all right, fine, I have to fight back. And then he beats the shit out of the two cops. But they just beat this blind guy. They're just like, I'm gonna fuck this guy. You're the lawyer of the guy who killed the cops. And I don't know. Cool. Thank you for finally fighting these cops. But this series has a lot of love being poured, and I know a lot of people love it. I think the audio description is fantastic. It's excellent. It's got so many great moments in it throughout the episodes. The action sequences are really well done. The descriptions of people, not so much, because it's people who have been in other things before. Even recently, both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio have appeared in recent Disney Plus shows. So their depth of description is not as needed as some of the newer characters. I'm interested to see where the show goes. From a blind perspective, I mean, I was excited when they pointed out the white cane in the first episode in the audio description for us blind people. I don't have no idea if the sighted people were like, oh, it's a white cane. This is one of the things, like when I used to be sighted and now I'm blind, and one of the things that always gets brought up to me is Daredevil. Like, Jesus. I found a lady the other day online who was talking about in a blind community who was I don't know, insane, and she was talking about how, she has a third eye and she talks to spirits and stuff, and I was like, "This is not real," because that's this weird stereotype that is passed along to us also, is that, because media has cast so frequently uses blind people as, like, sages, like, we either immediately gain the ability to know how to fight, you know? Like, "I hear you." I have the sonar, like, sight or hearing, or, somehow we are able to, like, predict the future or communicate with the dead or something. It's like, I didn't gain a superpower. I just I lost a sense. That's what happened. I didn't gain a sixth one, so, um, yeah, I I love Daredevil, though. I'm a huge comic nerd, but I'm a little always trepidatious coming into this as a blind person being like, "Great, great, now people are gonna come to me and be like, 'Did you see Daredevil again?'" Like, it's already happening. I'm already having people who, like, run up to me and wanna have conversations about Daredevil because they wanna talk to a blind guy about Daredevil. So, this has been, like, 2 days. Um, I had the opportunity to screen the entire Daredevil. I was offered all of Daredevil, and I turned it down because the way that Disney screens their things is through a platform called Disney Debut, which has, in my experience, never supported audio description on any title. So I need the audio description, which is kind of a hilarious thing because you would think with a show like this that you would want a blind film critic to talk about it, like a blind critic to talk about Daredevil. Like, what's the perspective from the community that is being featured largely in the center role here? But then if my accessibility needs aren't met, then how am I supposed to do that? So I waited until the series debuted. But yes, I did get an advance um, opportunity to screen the entire 9 episode first season of Daredevil Born Again. And I just turned it down. Because it's more important for me to see the show with audio description than it is for me to watch 9 episodes of it without audio description, only to watch the 9 episodes again with audio description. Um, so, if it was for awards voting, which I did with a lot of contenders because I had to vote for awards and I didn't want to not consider things, so I crammed in a lot of reviews at the end of the year for things that I was not given audio description for, fine. Because I want to make sure that I vote as well and as well informed as humanly possible. But Daredevil's dropping in March. Any TV awards that I vote for, I don't vote for until like June or July. So, I got time. There's nothing I'm voting for recently that makes me need to jump into that pre-screen for Daredevil. Uh, so yeah, as a blind person, I think that's hilarious that the audio description. Anyway, but Daredevil Born Again. I I'm excited because I want, and this is what I've told some people. I'm like, I liked almost all of these people. I don't necessarily need Iron Fist, although if he comes along with everybody else, if that's the game, if he has to come along too, great, fine. But I need Kristen Ritter back as Jessica Jones. I need, obviously we're getting John Bernthal back as the Punisher. I need Mike Coulter back as Luke Cage. These are things that I need in my life. Those are the shows, the actors, those are the ones that I really liked. And even some of the characters that helped shape those worlds, I would love to see them back. So, yes, if this leads to that, great. And it's supposed to. I believe Kristen Ritter and Mike Coulter are both confirmed for future projects that are just not this. So, or maybe the second season of this also. But I think one of them, I think Kristen's in Secret Wars. Anyway, they're working them back in, and that's what makes it worth it. So, is this as good as Netflix was? It's pulling punches, to be honest. It's pulling some punches. It doesn't feel nearly as brutal. It doesn't feel nearly as violent. It feels like they're backing off a little bit. but it does feel somehow more violent and more adult than what they typically put out. Uh, but they've been inching that direction. Echo was inching that direction. Hawkeye was inching that direction. They've been slowly walking this direction for a while now, getting people prepared for it, because a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine can drop into theaters and make $1 billion and be fine. So they know that this genre can be what it doesn't need to pull punches. It just needs to be good. So I like the parallels and the storytelling between, because they were definitely shooting this uh, a while ago. I mean, the guy playing Iron White Tiger, not Iron Fist, White Tiger passed in 2023, and he still shot this. It's 2025. He died 2 years ago, and he filmed this. So, do I think? I mean, like, it's weird that the parallels are so strong, that this is that they seem to have lined this up with the world we live in. And I know people are gonna, there will be people online who are like, well, this series is woke. And it's like, they didn't know that this was that good. Based on when they shot it, if you just look at based on in memory of, and look at when that guy passed in 2023, not 2024, 2023. So either there's a shaman who's writing the series, or you know anyway. What do we do with Daredevil? I'm not giving it an A, because I've already admitted it's not as good as a Netflix series, so I can't literally sit there and be like, whoa. Do I think that there's some potential to be excellent here through the storytelling? Yes. Is it going to take time to get there? Probably. I like Charlie Cox. I've never really fully loved Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. I don't like what he does with his voice, to be totally honest. It feels like they couldn't find a Kingpin, and then they found somebody who's just like large. And Michael Clark Duncan did make four. In preparation for this, I did watch the Ben Affleck movie. And while there's a lot that's wrong with that movie, one of the things that I really like is that Michael Clark Duncan actually feels like a foreboding presence. He actually has the voice that when he wants to use it, it's a big voice, it's a deep voice, and he can be scary. And it's kind of what they want for Vincent D'Onofrio, but his voice just comes across as gravelly and not necessarily, I don't know, but and I'm excited that Charlie Cox is back, because I think he's a better Daredevil than Ben Affleck. So if I could take Charlie Cox and have thrown him in with Michael Clark Duncan, I think that would have been the excellent performance. But there might even be another actor out there who could be a better Kingpin than either one of them. So fully onto that as well. Let's give Daredevil Born Again episodes 1 and 2 an A-. That's what I'm going to say. I think there's a lot here to work with. There's a good starting mold. Do I think it instantly came out of the gate and rocketed past everything that the original series had created? No. Do I think it instantly matched it? No. Do I think it could? Sure. Yeah. A different set of writers, given a different period of time, can write a completely different story that can go in a different place and explore. I'm really hoping we don't abandon Karen as a character. That would be nice. I hope that's not the last time we see Karen. Because I already hate the fact that Foggy's gone after like 5 seconds. So, yeah, hopefully she's in a later episode. But we'll see. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.